10 weeks stuck at number 2. That obsession birthed the biggest hit of their career and shattered the partnership forever. A British guitarist stranded in New York with one last desperate shot. An American voice pulled from a band destroyed in a truck wreck. Together, they sold 80 million records. Then came the songwriting credit that made one man a fortune and left the other with nothing. Decades later, they still run from each other like enemies. This is Foreigner, the band that conquered the world and lost their brotherhood by the end. New York City, 1976. Mick Jones was stranded. The British guitarist had paid his dues in the trenches of the London rock scene, playing with Spooky Tooth and grinding through endless tours that led nowhere. He'd crossed the Atlantic to join the Leslie West Band, chasing the American dream that had eluded him back home. But when that project collapsed, Jones found himself alone in a city that didn't care about his resume or his British pedigree. He was in his early 30s, ancient by rock and roll standards. He'd watched younger bands surge past him on the charts. He'd seen his opportunities evaporate one by one, and he was contemplating the most humiliating defeat any musician can face, returning home with nothing to show for the years of sacrifice. But Mick Jones wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. Before we continue, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Sitting alone in a New York apartment, Jones began writing. Not for a band, not for a project, just for himself, channeling his desperation into songs that captured something he'd never quite achieved before. One of those songs was called Feels Like the First Time. It had a hook that wouldn't let go, a melody that felt both fresh and inevitable. Jones knew he had something special, but he also knew he couldn't do it alone. Jones began assembling his team with surgical precision. From Britain, he recruited drummer Dennis Elliott and multi-instrumentalist Ian MacDonald, the latter a veteran of the progressive rock band King Crimson. From America, he brought in keyboardist Al Greenwood and bassist Ed Gagliardi, 5 pieces of the puzzle. But the most crucial element was still missing. He needed a voice. Not just any voice. He needed a vocalist who could deliver the emotional power that American audiences demanded. Someone who could make suburban teenagers feel like stadium gods just by turning up the radio. That's when Jones heard about Lou Gramm. Gramm was working in Rochester, New York with a band called Black Sheep. They were talented but going nowhere, and then disaster struck. A catastrophic truck accident destroyed 80% of their equipment. The band was effectively finished, though nobody wanted to admit it yet. When Jones called Gramm to invite him to audition in New York, Gramm's first instinct was loyalty. He told Jones he was honored, but couldn't abandon his bandmates. It was a moment that could have changed everything, one decision that would have left Foreigner as a footnote in rock history. But Gramm's bandmates saw what he couldn't. They sat him down and delivered the brutal truth. Black Sheep was over. The dream was dead. And this phone call might be his only chance at something bigger. Gramm called Jones back. The audition was set. And when Gramm opened his mouth and unleashed that 4-octave range, powerful, soaring, unmistakably American, Jones knew the final piece had fallen into place. They called the band Foreigner. The name was perfect. No matter where they toured, at least 3 of them would always be outsiders. British in America, Americans in Britain, perpetual foreigners in search of a home. But there was something else happening beneath the surface, something that would eventually tear them apart. Mick Jones had learned from his previous failures. He'd been in bands where democracy led to chaos, where too many voices diluted the vision. This time, he would maintain control. He wrote Feels Like the First Time by himself. He produced the demos. He made the decisions. Even Ian MacDonald, one of the founding members, would later express bitterness about how his contributions to the debut album were minimized, how he never received proper credit for his role in developing songs that would become classics. The seeds of destruction were planted from the very beginning, but nobody noticed yet. They were too busy chasing the dream. March 8th, 1977. The self-titled debut album Foreigner hit record stores across America. Within weeks, it was everywhere. Feels Like the First Time exploded onto FM radio, climbing to number 4 on the charts. That opening riff, instantly recognizable, impossibly catchy, became the sound of summer. Then came Cold as Ice, darker, more menacing, with that unmistakable keyboard line that slithered through your brain and never let go. It peaked at number 6. The album itself climbed to number 4 on the Billboard 200 and would eventually sell 5 million copies. 3 hits from one album. Foreigner wasn't just successful, they were unavoidable. Hearing Feels Like the First Time on the radio wasn't just entertainment, it was a declaration that your youth mattered, that your generation's music could compete with anything that had come before. The follow-up was even bigger. Double Vision, released in 1978, peaked at number 3. The title track hit number 2, and Hot Blooded, that relentless sexual unstoppable rocker, climbed to number 3 and became the anthem every cover band in America had to learn. Foreigner had conquered the first peak. They were arena royalty now, selling out venues across the country, dominating FM radio, appearing on every major music show. Mick Jones's vision had been validated. His gamble had paid off. But something was happening that nobody wanted to talk about. All these hits were always close to the top, but never quite at the summit. Never that undisputed number 1. For most bands, this would have been more than enough. But for Mick Jones, who had spent years stranded in obscurity, it became an obsession. He wanted that number 1. He needed it, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get there, even if it meant betraying everything they had built. The early 1980s belonged to Foreigner. Their album 4, released in 1981, hit number 1 on the Billboard 200. It spawned massive hits like Urgent, which climbed to number 4, and the power ballad Waiting for a Girl Like You, which spent an agonizing 10 consecutive weeks at number 2 without ever reaching the top. But there was a deeper story unfolding during this era, one that speaks directly to why this music still matters. Jukebox Hero wasn't just another rock anthem. It was inspired by something real. Mick Jones had witnessed a young fan standing alone in the pouring rain outside an arena, soaking wet but refusing to leave, desperate to hear the music. That image of dedication, of believing so completely in the transformative power of rock and roll, became the heart of the song. But behind the scenes, the band was fracturing. The creative partnership between Jones and Gramm, the British sophistication and American power that had made them unstoppable, was collapsing under the weight of conflicting visions. Lou Gramm wanted to stay true to their hard rock origins. Solid drums, powerful guitars, the sound that had made them legends. But Mick Jones was hearing something different. The 1980s were bringing synthesizers and polished pop production to rock music. And Jones, still haunted by those number 2 finishes, believed that sound was the key to finally reaching the summit. Gramm later described it with painful clarity. Jones was moving in a more lucrative direction that was the opposite of where Gramm wanted to go. One man wanted to protect their rock credibility. The other wanted that number 1 hit. And in the end, only one of them would get what they wanted. Agent Provocateur arrived in 1984. Jones doubled down on the synthesizer-heavy production, bringing in outside producers and pushing the band's sound towards something more commercial, more radio-friendly, more polished than anything they'd done before. And then, in November 1984, they released I Want to Know What Love Is. I wanna know what love is. The power ballad to end all power ballads. Soaring vocals, lush production, a gospel choir providing the emotional crescendo. It was everything Mick Jones had been chasing for nearly a decade. It hit number 1 in the United States, number 1 in the United Kingdom, number 1 around the world. The biggest hit of Foreigner's career, the validation Jones had desperately needed, the proof that his vision had been correct all along. But the cost was everything. Mick Jones was listed as the sole songwriter. Lou Gramm had said he helped shape the song, but was denied co-writing credit and publishing, while Jones collected the songwriter's share from their biggest hit. Gramm felt the betrayal like a knife to the chest. He later said the disagreement over songwriting credits changed everything, that he knew Jones was wrong, that he was dishonest, and that Jones made a fortune while leaving Gramm out of it. On tour, the two men who had created some of the most iconic rock anthems of the era barely spoke to each other. The friendship was dead. The creative partnership was finished. and Foreigner, at the absolute peak of their commercial success, was already falling apart from the inside. The aftermath of I Want to Know What Love Is was slow, agonizing, and irreversible. Lou Gramm didn't just feel cheated out of money. He felt erased. After contributing to nearly every hit song the band had released over more than a decade, he was being reduced to just a singer. Not a creative partner, not a collaborator, just a hired voice delivering Mick Jones's vision. Gramm described the suffocation with raw honesty. Jones was suppressing his creativity, telling him to just sing his parts and nothing more. For a man who had poured his soul into building Foreigner from nothing into a global powerhouse, being marginalized like this was unbearable. Their final album together, Inside Information, released in 1987, peaked at number 15, a clear sign that the magic was fading. The album produced one last major hit, Say You Will, which reached number 6. But even that success felt hollow. The creative fire that had generated their classic catalog was gone, replaced by professional obligation and barely concealed resentment. By 1990, Lou Gramm had enough. He left the band to focus on his solo career, which had already produced hits like Midnight Blue. He needed to escape the toxic environment, to reclaim his artistic identity, to remember what it felt like to create music without someone telling him to just shut up and sing. Mick Jones was left holding the Foreigner brand, determined to prove the band could continue without Graham's voice. It was pride, stubbornness, and denial all wrapped together. He recruited Johnny Edwards, a talented singer from Montrose, and a different frontman than Gramm. Jones wanted to create a harder rock sound, aligned with the hair metal trends of the late 1980s, moving back toward the guitar-driven approach Gramm had always championed, but without Gramm there to see it. The result was Unusual Heat, released in 1991. It peaked at number 117. The commercial failure was catastrophic, from number 15 to number 117. The drop wasn't just a disappointment, it was a public humiliation. The music industry and the audience delivered their verdict with brutal clarity. Foreigner without Lou Gramm wasn't Foreigner. Johnny Edwards was a good singer, but his voice was wrong for the band. The songwriting without the Jones-Gramm partnership lacked the magic, and the timing couldn't have been worse. Grunge was exploding, and polished 1980s rock suddenly felt dated and irrelevant. Original drummer Dennis Elliott and bassist Rick Wills both left. Mick Jones was now the sole original member, carrying a brand that no longer meant what it once did. The tragedy deepened when Gramm briefly returned for the album Mr. Moonlight in 1994. Surely the reunion would reignite the old magic, right? Surely the audience would come back. Mr. Moonlight peaked at number 136. For the fans who had followed Foreigner from the beginning, who had bought every album and attended every tour, this was heartbreaking. The band that had soundtracked their youth, their first loves, their first heartbreaks, their first taste of freedom, was now a broken shell of itself, limping through the motions while the world moved on. Today, decades after the split, the wounds have never healed. Lou Gramm confirmed in 2013 that he and Mick Jones have no relationship. None. When Gramm sees Jones in Los Angeles, Jones avoids him. Two men who created some of the most enduring rock anthems in history can't stand to be in the same room together. Mick Jones continues to tour with Foreigner, having recruited singer Kelly Hansen in 2005. Lou Gramm tours separately, performing the hits he sang lead on: Cold as Ice, Urgent, I Want to Know What Love Is. His voice, though weathered by time, still carries the power that made those songs immortal. But here's the thing about legacy. Sometimes the music transcends the men who created it. Foreigner has sold over 80 million records worldwide, 38 million in the United States alone. Their songs continue to dominate classic rock radio, and in a twist that would have seemed impossible during the bitter 1990s, their music has found new life in contemporary culture. Cold as Ice in Stranger Things, I Want to Know What Love Is in Pitch Perfect. They're hits licensed by Toyota, Google, and Ford to sell products to the very demographic that grew up with the music. Every time one of those songs plays in a commercial or a movie, It's a validation, proof that the music they created in their 20s and 30s still matters, still moves people, still captures something essential about the American experience. For the audience that lived through Foreigner's rise and fall, this enduring presence is bittersweet. The songs bring back memories of youth, of freedom, of a time when the future felt limitless. But they also serve as a reminder of how fragile greatness can be, how easily ego and greed can destroy something beautiful. The story of Foreigner is ultimately a story about the American dream and its cost. Mick Jones came to America stranded and desperate, built an empire through sheer determination, and achieved the #1 hit he'd chased for years. But he lost the one thing that made it possible: his partnership with Lou Gramm. Lou Gramm contributed to nearly every hit, poured his soul into making Foreigner legendary, and was repaid with betrayal and being erased. He got his artistic freedom, but lost the platform that made his voice matter to millions. Both men got what they wanted. Both men lost what they needed. And the music outlived them both. Foreigner proved that sometimes the greatest art comes from the most broken partnerships. 80 million records sold, 9 top 10 hits, a sound that defined an era. But the cost was a brotherhood destroyed by greed, ego, and the relentless pursuit of validation. Their anthems still echo through classic rock radio, through movie soundtracks, through memories of youth that refuse to fade. The men may be broken, but the music is forever. What's your favorite Foreigner memory? Drop it in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories of rock's greatest triumphs and tragedies.